Hello everyone, I'm Ace from the Figma Decal. I am here today to do a walkthrough of Lab 3, Pattern Grids. So from this week's content, we learned about components, variants, and elements of composition, so things like layout grids and guidelines. So today's lab is going to be talking about basically how to use variants and a way that you can implement the use of different kinds of components and actually use layout grids in a way that's helpful to you. So we're going to dive right in with the warm-up. So this warm-up is actually taken from one of Figma's official playground files that talks about how to create variants from scratch. It's a really excellent file that we really encourage you to take a look at in its entirety. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, so we're going to be using part of their content here to walk you through exactly how to make a variant. So we're going to go ahead and start from here, creating variants from scratch. We're going to walk through basically how to make all of these different versions. And one thing I want to note is that there are these hyperlinks, but they're unfortunately not going to work on this file. Apologies for the oversight. They're actually going to open the duplicate of the existing community file, and we weren't able to remap all of the links. So for now, just go ahead and scroll right through. They're just to help you move from frame to frame. So you're going to move right over here to the first step, creating a simple alert banner. So they've actually already made the component for us. So in this section, we'll walk through creating component, adding variants, and naming them. We'll create an alert banner with error, success, and info variants. So step one here, variants can only be added to a component. So we need to make sure that this existing banner is a component. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight everything, and you're going to see in the side here, it's the full frame called banner, and it contains the text and another frame that has the icon. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the component button up here, or I can do Control-Alt-K or Command-Option-K. So I'm going to click on it. And you see it actually becomes purple. It now has that special fancy looking diamond that indicates that it's a component. And again, it's purple on the side as well. It's no longer showing the pound sign icon. So number two, next we'll walk through a series of steps outlined on the sidebars to the right to start adding variants. So as you can see down here, we're going to be basically making three variants of the same banner component. So with number one, adding variants, with the component selected, click the plus sign in the variant section of the properties panel. I also realized I have layout grids on, so I'm going to hide those until later. So I click on this, and here we have the word variants. So I'm going to go ahead and click the plus sign. You see what it's done is it's added this dotted line, and it's going to show you this plus button. So now we have two variants that are currently identical of the banner. So we created a new variant. The original component, which is this top one, and the new one live inside an object called a component set. So that's what it's going to be whenever you see this dotted line. It's going to be a component set. So we can also add it by clicking on this plus button here. So I'm going to go ahead and just click this plus button when I have this selected. And that's going to add a third variant for us right there. So right now, again, they're all the same, and Figma by default is going to name the first one default, the second one variant 2, the next one variant 3, and so on and so forth, until you decide to rename them on your own, which you always should. So naming properties, when creating new variants, Figma will give them generic names like we just mentioned, and we can use the properties panel to change them to something more meaningful. So first, you want to select the new banner component set, that being the entire section. So we're going to select the entire grid of all three components. And in the properties panel, highlight the text and give it a new name. This property is going to tell us what type of message the banner will have. So we'll call it type. So we go ahead and see right now, it's called property 1. We don't want it to be called that. We want it to be called type, which is more expressive and actually gives us more information about what we want to do or what each of these different variants actually does. So we're going to click that. And now they are called type. So when we select these, we see that instead of saying property 1, it says type default, and then this one says type variant 2. And then now we actually want to make those be meaningful names. So you select the specific variant that we want to rename, so one of the three. We highlight the name and change it to something that describes what type of alert it will be used for, and then we repeat it for each variant. So we want error, success, and info. So I'm going to go ahead and click this top one, and it's going to change it to error. That's the red one. We want to keep it red. This one is going to be success. You want that to be the green one, and this one's going to be info, and that's going to be the blue one. All right, so now we have three variants, and as you can see, they're all identical, so we do want them to look different. So what we're going to go ahead and do is color drop from here to change each of these different banners. So the first one, error, we do want it to be red, so we're going to keep it. The next one's success. What I'm going to do is change the color through the selection colors. So from here, I'm actually going to grab this bright red and unlink it. So now it's no longer attached to the style of the red. It's still the same color, but it's not attached to the original style. If I wanted to re-add it, I would have to grab the style from somewhere else. So what I'm going to go ahead and do for this variant that is the success variant, I want it to be green. So I'm going to take this eyedropper tool. I can also click eye and then grab this color, this green from right here. There you go. So now that is going to basically change any part of this that was red into green. So the reason why I want to do that is you notice that this actually has some interesting properties where the banner itself actually has not only a fill but also a stroke. So if I were to instead only grab the fill and do the eyedropper to the blue here, the stroke is still red. And if I was going to do the same thing by using the eyedropper and getting the stroke color to change, obviously the fill is going to stay red as well. So because we did the selection tools route, it says that any part of this current selection that is red, which includes the fill and the stroke, is now going to change. So again, I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to unlink this. I'm going to grab this color, go to the eyedropper, and then go to blue for info, because this is the info one, and you see that both the fill and the stroke changed to blue, even though I just did one action, so they're both blue now. Just a heads up that selection colors is a super useful thing to use whenever you want to change colors really quickly. So we're going to go ahead and continue now using our new alert banner. So we want to switch to the assets panel and search for banners. So we talked in lecture about how normally we're going to be on this layers panel, but whenever you want to work with components, you can go ahead and move to the assets panel. So here we want to look up the local components, or we want to look at the component we just made. So I found banner, and you see here that there's actually only one component showing because banner is one thing. So if you were to make, say, a button that has 16 different variants, you wouldn't want it to take up the space of 16 separate things because you're able to change them so quickly, as we're going to see right here. You only want to show once. So even though we have 3 separate variants for banner, it's all in one component set. So in the assets panel, in any shortcut menus, it's just going to show up as one banner. It's going to show the first one, which is the error one. So we're going to go ahead and drag this into this design. I want to put it right here, and we're going to line it up with that right there. And notice how the search again shows the single thumbnail. This is because we can use the new variants here to change the property type. So the type here says error. So banner is the component, and then the type is error. So I want to close this. I want to just grab this and change the info. So you see there that it's going to color swap. It's going to change to how we originally set them in the designs. Now here it's just a color swap, so you could argue like, oh, I mean, if I wanted to do that, I would just, change the colors. But if we were to actually implement this design, we would likely be changing the message title and the actual message to be messages that would align with all of these different types. So if it's success, it would say like success, the file was published, or if it was error, it would say something went wrong, maybe the file was unable to update because you're not connected to the internet, and if it was info, it might say something like verify your education status, and we could have those be the default messages, so it would be more of a difference than just the color change. In fact, just to drive that home, let's actually just change this to say something different. So in the error one, I'm going to have it say something went wrong, the sad face, and then in the info one, I'm going to say blah, 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 just for now. And then in the success one, I'm going to say congratulations with a happy face. So, I mean, this is not really good copy for actual banners. You probably wouldn't want to say blah, blah, blah. But just to drive that home, here you see that the one that we added actually says congratulations now. And then I'm going to go ahead and change it to say error. And it's going to change the text as well there. So we wanted to stay on info, and we're going to go ahead and continue. That's how you basically add a variant. You go to the assets panel. And we also talked about in lecture, one special addition recently is the shift I. So I'm pressing Shift I, and it's actually going to let you search for components in this really easy menu. So I could grab local components. I can open this up to show the ones that are made on this particular page. Again, we're on the Warmup variants page. So I go here, I see banner, I could drag another one in here. So that's one way to go around adding a component without using the assets panel itself. So moving right on, we've got a couple more things to do here. We've got a multi-property set of inputs. So we want to set up the component set with a lot of different properties, specifically just 2 properties here, because it's easy to see in a grid how they relate or interact with each other. So we have a set of inputs with different states. They've got default, focus, filled, error, success, and deactivated. It's also got 2 different types, text and select. So you can see here that one of them is where you would put a text box. So say, like earlier, this is a text box, this is an example of a text box, and this is a select option. So that's a different type of input property. So this example is actually already set up with the properly styled variants, like we did in the previous step where we changed the colors and made them all look different, but they are not named. So it's actually going to give us errors. So when we open this up, we see that it says some variants might have the same property values applied. Change the values to resolve this. So you might be thinking about why it might start with this default error. And the reason why is because all of them are currently set to be called default. So let's say that we're trying to design something and we drag in this component and we want a different version. Say I have this version, but I want this one. I won't be able to change it because they're both called default. And the software then doesn't know exactly what each one is because it's confused. Like, I don't know which default you're talking about. You can see this also in the layers panel where all of them are called default. So that's bad practice. We want to make sure that this is actually the way that we want it to go. So again, we're going to select this whole set. And then we're going to follow the directions here. So first things first, you want to add the properties. So Figma creates one initial property whenever you have a variant, because there's going to be something differentiating them by default. If there's no properties, you wouldn't have a variant. So right now we just have, again, property 1 just like earlier. So we're going to rename it to type. And then we also want the second property, the state. So the type would be either text or select. And the state would be this other axis, this other kind of set of differentiators. So we're going to go ahead and add that from the 3 dots, add new property, not variant. And we're going to go ahead and change it to state. We're going to add state. So now you see all of these actually changed. I'll do an undo just so you can see. They were originally all default with just one property, type. And now when you add it, it's going to see default. So this is the way that it's going to communicate what type of each, or I guess I don't want to use the word type, which variant of each property it is, which value, that's the word, which value of each property it was. So going to adding new values, Figma creates a default value for every property like we talked about earlier. So we want to add more meaningful names again so that we can use them and actually have them be useful. So select all of the inputs in the left-hand column of variants and add the value value input for the type property. So all of these you can see are called text, and we want all of these to be, yeah, I think we actually want it to be called text instead of input. I'm going to go ahead and just take the liberty of changing that. So you can see here that all of these are type default, state default. So we're actually going to go to type and change it to text. Again, we're going to not make it input because that's actually the name of the whole component set. We're just going to call it text. So now you see that half of these say default and half of them say text default. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing on the right column. I'm selecting all of these by holding shift. And for the type, I'm going to make it say select. Cool. So now you see that there's no more default. All of them are select or text. That's no longer an issue. So what we can do then is repeat the same steps for the additional other states. So that was like the mix, the error, the placeholder, the focus, different settings. So for our error state example, select both error variants, so the 2 that are next to each other, and we can type in the new error value. So we want to do that with all of the states. You have default, focus, filled, etc., etc. I'm going to go ahead and click on this one and change them to state default. Default is actually the right one there. And you'll notice here that the type says mixed. So we don't want it to be, because these 2 are different, they're going to say mixed. One is text and one is select. Figma is often going to show this kind of mixed property so that it doesn't confuse you, so that you know that there's different things going on. So we're going to go ahead and just see how this says text. See when you select this, it still says text, it still says text. And then if we were to select the top one, which is still text, it would be the same. But if we want to select one from the right side, it's going to say mixed. So if I deselect, it's text. If it's selected, it's mixed. Right, so we're just going to go through and add all of these. Focus, we want this to be focus. We want these two to be filled. We want these two to be error. And again, you could do this without selecting both. You could do it one by one if you want. This is just a little bit more time efficient. And we want this one to finally be deactivated. And what we're actually going to see is that this error is going to go away because you've successfully gone through all of them and changed their values to be different, which means that they're all unique now. All of them are a unique set of values for their properties. So I'm going to hit enter. And there you go. The error is now gone. All of these are different. We've got all of these different combinations here. They're all unique. So now whenever we want to select the one that we're going to be doing, we know exactly which one we're looking for. And just to show you one more thing, if we undo that so that they're still messed up, I can select this whole thing and actually select conflicting variants. So it's going to actually show me directly which ones have issues. And we can see that right now, it's because these bottom two that should be deactivated are still called default. So that's the easy way to show. It's actually a little bit hard to see, but the purple outlines are on just the top two and then the bottom two. The middle ones are all unique now, so there's no problem. But Figma's telling me that, like, hey, of these four, you've got to figure it out. You've got to solve this somehow. It can't read my mind to know exactly how I'm going to change it, but it can do that. So again, we're just going to fix this up again. Deactivated, and now they're all good to go. Awesome. So with that, that's actually all we've got to do here, but I'm going to go ahead and show you what it's going to look like to interact with these. So we're going to one more time go to the Shift-I menu, Shift-I. I'm going to open up the local components, go to Warmup variant, and we see creating multi-property, which is the name of this frame. They're going to be organized by frames like that. I click input, so we can go ahead and drag that out. And we've got one input bar here. And just so you can see how it looks, we have this type property and this state property. So we can go ahead and just click on this and change it to select. And you're going to see it's going to be that version that has a drop-down menu. If we go to state, I can just go ahead and cycle through these. I can go to success, I can go to filled, I can go to deactivated, I can go to focus, and then if I want to change any of these to text again, I can go ahead and just use these drop downs. So again, we discussed how convenient it is to be able to just change it from this menu without having to hunt for the exact one, search up the naming. You know, sometimes you don't remember exactly how you name your states. So having this ability to visually look at all of the options, see all of these different states at the same time is super useful. So yeah, that is your crash course on how to create components. And with that, we're going to go ahead and do the actual bulk of this lab, the instructions in Workspace. And I'm actually going to not take way too much time doing this. I'm just going to show you how to make these grids and see how they work. Give me 1 second to drink some water. But if you're on the file right now, you want to go to the instructions and Workspace page. Okay, so fun with patterns and grids. So in this lab, we're going to go through that warm up that we just did, and then we're going to make our own shapes, icons, whatever you want, into a reusable component, and then make those into a repeating pattern. So if you can do a tessellating pattern, we can look that up if you're interested. Tessellations basically make it look like the pattern is really smoothly melding into itself instead of being discrete squares. You're welcome to do that, but no pressure. The goal of this is just to get comfortable with grids. So with this activity, we're going to create a component that we want, and then we want to make a variant of it. So here it uses kind of the original version of how we would do this, a little bit hacky, of duplicating the component, attaching the instance, editing it, and then remaking it. But we can do what we actually just did in the previous example, and add a new variant of it, and then change the variant in whatever way we want. So then once we do that, we can go ahead and work through the frame, add our layout however we want it to look through the different grids and guides, and then we can basically duplicate those components and then use the grid to align them in some way. So if we go ahead and look at this example, we want to notice that it says make sure you have layout grids visible. Use the shortcut. On the Mac, it's going to be Control G, not Command G. And on a PC, it's actually going to be Control Shift 4. It's just a completely different shortcut. I don't really know why. But if that is a hard thing to remember, which it is, you can actually just go here. This Figma menu up here is going to have all of the different menus you normally have. You can go to View. You can click Layout Grids, Control Shift 4 right here. It's actually going to show you that Elizabeth, when making this lab, already implemented some layout grids. One other thing I'm going to show you is if you want to really quickly search for anything like a shortcut, you can use that quick search menu of Control or Command Shift, Control or Command, sorry, not Shift, slash is going to be the one on the question mark. I never remember which one is backslash and which one is forward slash, but it's the one next to the question mark key, the same key as the question mark. So Control question mark is going to open up this basically like Spotlight search menu where I could go to layout grids. I can click on that. And this is actually really helpful because it shows you recent things. So because I just looked that up, I can just toggle it again. It's smart enough to know that I'm probably searching for it again if I've looked for it before. But you can basically find anything in here, whether it's like, here, let's just look show. It's going to show all of these different things. I can look up edit. I can actually look up one of the really handy things of the different select options. So if you're ever in a situation where you need to select like all of the text layers, everything that's red, everything that has the same properties of which you have selected, you can actually use this menu to search for those really quick. So just to give you an example, because I'm on this tangent right now, if I were to click on this, if we were to click on this bunny. So let's say I want everything that matches this bunny. So what I'm going to do is go to this menu and say select. Oh, actually, I spelled it wrong. Select all with the same properties. So when I do that, it's actually selecting every single bunny vector, not actually each particular component, but the vector exclusively, because that's what I selected earlier before I went into the menu. I clicked on just the vector. It's going to select all of those, no matter where they are in the file. So even if I had them like way over here, even if it wasn't in this particular frame, it's still going to select them for me. And this is useful for, let's say I wanted to change the color of all of them. It's going to let me do that right now. So if I wanted to change them all to be, pink, it's all going to work immediately. So yeah, just a really handy tip, and not really related to this content at all. I just wanted to show it off because I think it's been really helpful to me. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and make our component. So what I'm going to do is make something that visually is pretty similar but has different color variations. So I'm going to make a quick illustration of like an orange slice, lemon slice, lime slice. So let's make a circle. Let's kind of design this out really quick. Let's see if I want to make them maybe 300 by 300. And then what I'm going to do is I want a semicircle. So I'm going to take this arc and drag it out, and perfect. Now it's a semicircle. I want another one, so I'm going to copy it and just make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to make it maybe, let's do 250, and I'll show you where this is going soon. I want this now to be white. Let's make it a little bit off-white. We're going to start with the orange, so a little off-white, and I want this to be lined up in the middle. And I want the rind part, if you can kind of visualize where this is going, to be orange. So bright orange. Let's take this white one more time and make it the same general hue. It's going to be a little off-white. Perfect. So I want to add now like sections to this orange to communicate like the different parts of it. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is just make them all arcs. So I'm going to copy that. I've got another copy of it now. And then take this sweep and put it at, I think, what is the, okay, so actually, I know that I want it to be 3 parts on this half, so I know it's going to be whatever 1/6 is in percentage, so I'm actually going to do math here. 100 divided by 6%. So fun fact is that all of these text inputs actually can take math. So this is really helpful if you're like me and you can't do basic math really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and do that and change it to be a little bit different of an orange. Let's make it maybe here. And then what I want is to be a little bit of a white line. So I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller, or actually let's duplicate this and then I'll show you. I'm gonna Shift H, flip that over. Then I'm gonna do another one, copy paste, and then move the start to be here so that the whole thing kind of shifts over. So now I've got these. Oh, this is not quite aligned. Holding Shift is gonna lock it into the spot I want it to be. So all three of these I want to be just a tiny bit smaller so I see the white peeking in between them. So I'm gonna make them maybe 230. Okay, so I'm gonna drag this down. I want to make this, I want to grab this one, pull it to be here. I'm gonna grab this one and pull it to be here. I'm actually gonna pull this up again. So now that I have these three pieces, sorry if this is a little confusing, I'm gonna make this sweep a little bit smaller. Let's make it 14%. And then let's make this one 14%. And let's make this one, this actually can stay. So now I've got this kind of orange shape going on. It's got these sections. It's not quite perfect, but I'm pretty happy with that as our orange starter piece. And then I'm gonna add a couple of small ovals to be like the seeds. So I've got one here. It's gonna be the same kind of hue as the white. We're gonna make it just a little darker. I'm gonna make a copy by holding Alt and turning it. Oh, that looks good. And then I'm gonna make another copy, holding Alt. I'm gonna flip it over the vertical axis, and then drag it to here. All right, so now I've got my orange slice. I'm gonna go ahead and select everything. And one thing that I want to note is that whenever you have those circles, it's going to show the box as the entire circle, even though it's just a semicircle. So with this orange here, you remember that we made it a semicircle, but it keeps this whole sweep just in case you were going to like make it a full circle again, because it needs to read that size. This really distracts me sometimes when I don't want the whole box. It's especially important in this lab where the layout grids are going to be kind of adhering to this whole box. So what I'm going to do is actually select the outline for all of these. What it's going to do is disregard any of the smart shape stuff. So all of the stuff we did earlier with the arc and the sweep is going to go away, but it's going to treat them all as unique vectors. So what I'm going to do here is right click and say outline stroke. And what that's going to do is bring the vector or bring the whole box to be just along the vector edge. So when I click on this, I'm not going to have that arc or sweep or radius option that you had originally with the circle, but it is going to be this actual semicircle shape. It's going to have the box be around it there. So I'm going to do that, and I would only do that if I was actually designing something once I've completely finalized it. And I would say it actually would be good practice to keep a copy that's the original, so you can go back and edit it later. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to make a copy of it by holding Alt and dragging. And that shortcut for outline stroke is Control-Shift-O, Command-Shift-O if you're on a Mac. I'm going to do that, and it's going to outline it. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to make it a component and call it citrus. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and add a variant. And that's going to move it right there. I want them to be kind of going horizontally instead, I think. So I'm going to make a little bit more space. I'm going to add one more variant by clicking this here. I'm going to move you up here just so that it's a little bit easier to look at. And then I'm going to move this box to be smaller. But yeah, now we've got a component set called citrus. The component mainly is called citrus. And I want one to be orange, one to be lemon, and one to be lime. So I'm going to go back to the whole set and rename property 1, because we never want to keep it, it's just property 1, to be fruit. I'm going to go to default and name it orange. I'm going to go to variant 2, name it lemon. And then I want to go ahead and make this one yellow. So I'm going to go in here again with the selection colors and make this a nice yellow, not too bright. I like that. It would be a little bit less green. That looks good. And what I'm actually going to do is manipulate the colors directly from here. So we talked earlier about how the selection colors are going to adhere to any of the colors in that area, that whole selection, in which case right now it's just this box. and it's going to manipulate all of them. So I want all 3 of these different sections to be within the same hue, but a little bit lighter. So there we go, we've got that one. And then I want the white part to do the same thing and be really pale. And then I'm going to copy this, paste it in here, and make it a little bit darker. And now we've got a really quick way of doing that orange without having to select, or doing that lemon without having to select every single part of it. We're going to go into this last one here, variant 3, and name it lime. And then I'm going to go into the selection colors one more time and go to a green that I like. Something that's not too bright, something that's going to mesh well with the other colors is good. I like that. I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste it here. And something I want to note is Figma is smart enough to not collapse these into one option. So it knows that, like, oh, hey, you probably changed it to be the same color. You might change it again. So if it was like not working great, it might collapse them so that if I change, or actually let's just show you that. If I select out of it, I select it again. Now obviously the rind part and the 3 sections are all the same color. So if I want to change them now, I'd been manipulating both of them. But in that moment when we were changing them, it kept them separate so that I could manipulate them a little bit more easily. So I'm going to do this again, show you here again, and they're still separate. So I can still go ahead and do this change without it really disrupting my workflow. Go in and do the white part of the lime. Oh, go and do the white part. Oh no. Okay, white part of the lime. Go here, and copy that, and go into the seeds, and make the seeds a little bit darker again. Perfect. So now we've got my orange, I've got my lemon, I've got my lime, and again, all of them are bounded by this rectangular box instead of the square from earlier, so that they're easier to work with. And I'm going to zoom out and use this pattern grid. So again, I've already got layout grids on, Control-Shift-4 to turn them on, and I'm going to add a layout grid. So I think I want these, let's actually just like scribble this out really quick. I want them in kind of a cascading, maybe diagonal format. I think I actually want some of them to be flipped around. So let's say I've got, oh geez, it's quite laggy. Got this here. I want to be slightly offset. So I want to make it look like this. And I want to actually have it just bleed off of the page. I think that would look nice. So if it looks like this, it's kind of got these different rows going on. It's like that. It's actually showed on this side too, so it's like kind of bleeding off the edge. So with that, I think about it, and maybe what I want is either 3 columns, so 3 columns that look like this, that are like that, or I want maybe 5 straight lines that I can align in the center. So when we look over here, Elizabeth has shown 2 different ways that you could align things. So here we've got these like fat grids, these fat columns and fat rows that you can align in the center of each of these boxes. So if we zoomed in and we move this out and we want to realign it, we see that when we go in, it's going to align really nicely within each of these grids. In this one, on the other hand, we have just very thin lines that we can align on the top and bottom and the center. So if I drag, if I drag out just this one component and I want to put it back, it's going to align nicely with the top and the bottom, but it's not going to be like the fat grids like earlier. It does it in a different way. So with what I'm going for here, with this kind of pattern I have scribbled out, I think it would be easier to have basically 3 lines. I think what I want is for the ones that are half cut off to be directly aligned as like a halfway point. So it's actually going to be 5 lines. I want 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. So let's go ahead and add just those vertical columns for now. Layout grid plus, click here to make it a column. And okay, so now we want basically, I want 5, that's right. I might want them to stretch. I don't want them to stretch because I want to set the width automatically to be just 1. I want the width to be 1 for each of them, and then I want the offset to be different, What's going on here? Offset to be maybe 100. I'm not really sure why it's only showing. Okay, sorry, I had to zoom in. Because they're so thin, let's actually go ahead and just make them a little bit wider for now so that they're easier to see. Cool. So this gutter is going to be the space in between each of them. So, and the offset is going to be how far it is from the edge. So with this, if it's left with an offset of 100, it's going to be 100 pixels away from the left side. And they're going to be 20 pixels in between. I'm going to go ahead and just make this to be center. Then I don't have to worry about the offset on the left side or the right side. I just need to calculate the gutter to be exactly what I want it to be. And if I know that I want each of these to be equidistant from each other, and this whole thing is 1762 wide, I'm just going to do 1762 divided by 5. Awesome. So 1762 divided by 5 is going to show me these 5 here. So they're not quite where I want them to be. 1762 divided by 4. Yeah, so that's the actual math. Sorry, I always get confused with these. But because we want there to be 4 spaces and 5 columns, if I do it divided by 4, it's going to give me what I want. So they're actually off right now. You can't see them, but they're going to be on each side, the left side and the right side. Okay, awesome. So let's actually make these back to like just 2, maybe 3. And then we can line them up like this. So what I'm going to do is delete all of these sketches, all these scribbles, and start trying to drag these on and see if they work. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and drag it from here since it's so close by, holding Option. And then I want to drag it here, and it's going to align with the center of the orange. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm actually going to add those horizontal rows. So let's just prove this point and show each of these. So I'm going to drag out the same one and move it to the middle. That's going to line up. You saw that alignment grid come up really nice, and do it right here again as well. And then I want these to be different fruits. So let's make this lime or lemon, and then let's make this one lime. Let's do the same thing. I'm going to drag the lime out and put it here. And then I want it to snap into the middle. Oh, it doesn't want to do it. Oh, okay. So actually, yeah, it actually does not want to snap to the middle of this. So what I actually want then is to change the grid to show the width version that we talked about earlier without these thin lines. So apologies for kind of wasting the last couple of minutes. I did do that wrong. You can see I'm still learning as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and change this. So if you're watching this, I'm sorry if I messed you up there. And then I'm going to actually just make them stretch. The width is going to be auto. The margin, I don't want this to be that high. The gutters can be 0, and the margin can be 1. Okay, I seem to mess this up, so I'm going to actually delete it, add a new layout grid, and go to columns. So I want there to be 5 columns, and I don't want them necessarily to be, or I do want them to be the width of each of these. So what I'm going to do is still go from center, but the width is going to be the width of one of the components. So the component right now is width 300. So we can go here, type in 300, and then now it's going to have this like nice 5 layer. I want the gutters here to be maybe like 50. So that's going to be not quite lined up to the edge that I had before, the edge that I wanted. So maybe let's make it 100. And now you see that they're going to be lined up more the way that I wanted them to be. So let's make it not quite all the way off, but still cut off a little bit. I think that looks nice. And now it's going to line up the way we wanted it to. Yeah, apologies for not doing that right the first time. I hope you understand that I'm also still learning. But I like the way that that looks now. And let's go ahead and add the rows. So I'm going to copy this one here. And then we'll think about exactly where we want to put the rows. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to actually just see that the height of this is 150. So we're going to know that all of the rows are going to be about 150 pixels tall. So we're going to add a second layout grid here. Click on this. And click on rows, and then we want there to be maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to move this 10. I'm going to make the center. I'm going to the height to be 150. Okay, now we've got that, and let's mess around with this gutter. How much do we think it needs to be? If we make it 100, it's a little bit too much. If we make it maybe 60, that's not quite as far as I want it. 70, 80. Okay, I like 80, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. And basically what we're gonna do is place one component at where each of these overlaps are. So each of those rectangular overlaps. So I'm gonna take this one and this one. We're gonna take this one. Pull it up to match this grid. It's going to pop into place right there, really nice. I'm going to do that with all of these. Okay, and yeah, so now you see that they're all lined up real nice. And what I can actually just do and sort of cheat is just copy all 5 of them and keep pasting them below, but I do want the lineup to look a little different each time. So I'm going to do this. Oh, don't want to resize that. I'm going to make it do, instead of orange, lemon, lime, it's going to be lemon, lime, orange. Then orange here. So just to make the pattern look kind of the way I want it to look. That's gonna be lemon, lime, orange. The orange is gonna go here. And then I'm gonna line these up a little bit better. Oh gosh, sorry it's being very laggy. Right, let's line these up to match the top. Okay, and then the lemon is gonna go down there. Nudging these with the arrow keys right now, because I can see they're just a couple pixels off, because we were lining them up from pretty far away. Drag this down here, and that's gonna be great. Awesome. So now we've got 2 rows. I'm gonna do the last one to be a little different. The easier way of thinking about this might be that each particular column is just gonna follow the orange, lemon, lime pattern, but this is just kind of the way that my brain is thinking about the columns. So here we go. One here, and one here. And I'm going to go to the bottom, do one more lemon, and one more lime. All right, that was a little bit tedious. I just did 6 rows manually. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just copy these 4 rows and duplicate all of them. Oh, geez. Duplicate them without messing them up. Bring them down here and align them with each of these. So you just need to be nudged down a little bit. That one looks good. Okay, not all of these are perfect. I'm going to go ahead and nudge these down a little more also. Looks like they're just one or 2 pixels off. Okay, looks good. These are 1 or 2 pixels off. Now this is really nice because I have these layout grids on and I know that they look just a little bit off. So I can go in and fix all of them without having to eye it and keep guessing or keep doing these alignment guides. So pop these over to the right just a tiny bit. Line up. And okay. I think these are looking pretty good. Okay, line that up. And, you know, it's not, I don't want to waste everyone's time by making this go on much longer, so I'm just going to go ahead and call it there. But now I've got this going on, and if I click on this and I reduce that pattern, and I see I have these nicely lined up, different oranges, lemons, limes, the way that I wanted them to look. And yeah, that's a little anticlimactic, but that's it. I have all of these arranged in the way that I sort of wanted them to be. They could be changed a little bit, you know, they aren't necessarily exactly perfect, but I'm pretty happy with how they look right now. So that's all I'm going to do for today. If I were doing this with someone else, I could remix their frame, but I'm going to go ahead and just leave it there. But yeah, we talked about components, we talked about variants, we talked about grids. I had my own little hiccup doing the grids. As you can see, I'm also still learning, and I appreciate you bearing with me there. But I hope you learned something today. I hope this was helpful to you, and we're just going to call it. Thank you so much for watching this. Again, if you ever have any feedback watching these lab walkthroughs, I really appreciate messages. Apologies again for just like fudging up that bit. We'll try not to do that in the future. This is my first time walking through this entire lab. And I appreciate you. So have a lovely night or day, morning, whatever time of day it is for you. And I'll see you again soon.